to me, the beginning is you have that initial set of meetings with the auditor. And after that, really, that is not to do anything other than almost like an introduction, especially if you have a new audit committee seated both sides or you have new auditors starting, and to generally talk about the calendar and expectations. The most important meeting from the auditor's point of view is the next meeting that happens pre-field work, which is the risk assessment meeting, where the auditors come in, and it's designed around asking 3 questions. And the first 2 are always the same. Question number 1 is, has there been a fraud or a diversion of assets during the year that ended, including the subsequent period? Are you aware of some problem that's happened that's led to assets being lost? The second question is, are there any weaknesses in the internal accounting control systems, IACS, that you might be aware of that could potentially open the organization up to a problem in the future? And the third question really is to think about, be ready, it's an open-ended question. Different auditors ask it different ways, but they're basically saying, since we were last here, or if we're new auditors, what's new, what's happened in the organization since your last fiscal year ended? And things there, it's very open-ended, and you're not talking about little things, but you're talking about, we got our first grant. Any first, we started a brand new program, or we turned off a program, or we have a new executive director, or, there was something happening, or like in the past when we've had an economic factor, how did the organization, react to that circumstance that everybody was reacting to? So it's sort of like to let them know ahead of time something's changed.
Right. And I presume the nature of these questions being very operational, that it's usually audit committee working hand in hand with staff to get these answers. Is that
that's a good
correct?
question. We're going to catch that up a little bit under structure, but you always have a staff liaison, and they will be sitting with you. So the audit committee, very rare, not rare. I mean, there'll be times, we'll talk about a little bit later on, where the audit committee will go into executive session without staff there, even without the board there, and, discuss things. But most of the time, it's a teamwork. There's 3 people on the team, 3 positions: the audit committee, the staff liaisons, or the people working closely with the audit committee, and then the auditors. And these 3 groups are interacting. It could be 2 at a time. The auditors will be talking to the staff most of the time, but there'll be times where they'll reach right out to the audit committee. And Ben, then you get into that third chunk time. Remember, it's just the initial meeting, then the audit risk pre-field work meeting, then the actual field work meeting, which now is done mostly virtually, but where the name ones, because you used to come out in the field and actually go through documents and files. And that's where they're doing the bulk of their work. The auditors, staff is responding to, questions and providing information. And today we provide mostly access, but we also answer questions. And then the last chunk I put all together, which is concluding that process, getting the drafts of the report and going through an acceptance or non-acceptance of the reports. And to begin the circle or end the circle, what I like to think about is before the audit committee, closes out that audit process. I don't like to think they close the committee down for the year. Is they consider, and I'm pausing for dramatic effect here, Ben, they consider auditor continuance. And the auditor continuance is not a negative thing. It's just you want to be on record that we just finished up the process. And, we've only been with the auditor 1 or 2 years. You don't change auditors that fast, or there's been an issue. So even when everything's going along perfectly, you just say, hey, before we shut this down, are we continuing with the group? The group, the audit firm we're with, you say yes, and you're done. But you could have been with the firm for 7 or 8 years. At some point in time, you will change, or there could have been an issue. Reports are coming in late or something. So you just want to ask the question every year, but you don't necessarily go RFP or look for auditors every year. And then that's the beginning or the end of the next cycle. We got audit. We've approved the auditor. Now we start over again.